All right, nerds, we are live again. It's been such a long time. Haven't seen you guys in forever. And I might be a little bit rusty on my live streaming skills. It's been so long since I've done a solo, and I am using a slightly different software than I do for my interviews of candidates. But if you'll bear with me, we're going to get this going. We're going to talk about this, Andrew Yang's new book, which I actually got in the mail, but I got this version directly from Andrew himself quite a while ago. You can see I've actually read about a third of it. This has been well kind of, the man is prolific. So I was thinking of doing a book review for the whole thing. And then I quickly realized that the bro has written so much, there's no way I can do it in one stream. So this is the first one, and I will focus on his early reflections, and particularly his reflection of the presidential campaign. Then he kind of goes into the second section, which is like all the problems with the current system. And then he goes into kind of the forward party. We're just, for this stream, going to focus on the first one. And then if you're a subscriber, you'll know about the second and third one when I do it. And if you're not a subscriber, then you won't know. So you should subscribe. All right. With that said, we're going to get it warmed up with the trailer just for old time's sake.
Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up with. Drew Yang Gang, that's who I hooked up. Yo, there's no place to hide now that he's arrived. I'm saying he ain't playing now with this campaign. Bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with.
All right. Hello, nerds. Nerds for Humanity. Ready for a nerd book review. The whole thing is how many pages? 345-ish, including the index. I got through about 100 so far, and I have made some slides. So it's not just going to be me talking, but what I've done is, as I've read it, I basically underlined excerpts that I thought were really kind of notable. And this is going to be read, kind of a review based on if you're super into Andrew Yang and you were into the presidential campaign, this is the stream for you. If you've never heard of Andrew Yang, or weren't following him, you may want to just find another stream that kind of goes into the basics. This is not Andrew Yang 101. This is advanced graduate studies of Andrew Yang. All right. So with that said, let me just ask, where's everybody calling in from, or tuning in from, I should say? I'm coming to you from the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area, and if you haven't been to Northern California, you gotta check it out, because I love this place. I've only been here a year. Previous to that, I was in Switzerland. But tell me where you guys are calling in from, and I'll do some shout outs before we get started. So first of all, first one on the stream was Jay Perrin, who is also a member. Thank you, Jay. We've got BTS Dance Studio in here. Gayla, will you be reading your book on YouTube audiobooks? Oh, yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to do that, but it is available on Audible. And the book itself is reasonably priced, but I don't know if he's going to allow it to be read on YouTube like he did last time. Let's see. Elizabeth Norris, Elizabeth, I think you helped up set up Catherine Gale, who ended up having a huge influence on Yang, I think. So thank you, Elizabeth. And hello, nerds. Yes, we will have PowerPoint. Technically, Jackalego, we're going to have Google Slides, but very similar concept. Let's see. Gala is calling in from Mexico. Very nice. Purple Deaths is from Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, Young Man Logan, Woodland Hills, California. Woodland Hills, California. I'm near Redwood City. I think we might be near each other. Oh, You Are Brainwash is from Renton, Washington. You Are Brainwashed? I've got a t-shirt for you, bro. You ready to see the nerd strip? Bam. How you like them apples? All right, we've got oh, Maple Rhubarb is like, yeah, I should have linked to one of my other streams for the basics. I should, but I'm just not, I'm a little rusty, you know, because I remember we used to be doing like streams every few days when the man was running. Portland, Oakland, Southern California, which is almost as good as Northern California. Massachusetts, love the New England area, especially this time of year. NYC, Deutschland. Wow, nice crowd here. Corpus Christi, love it. All right. Yes, go Hawks indeed. We need a win today. We cannot, do not want to have another loss. All right. And Young Man Logan is in Erica and Shervin's district. Ooh, that's a highly contested district. Okay. Aries, welcome to from Mars. Yeah, I agree. Northern California is expensive, and Aldrich is from the Netherlands. All right, let's get into it, guys. I'm just going to go through some of the key things that struck me. They may not have struck everybody, but I thought they were interesting, and I'm just going to go through them. So let's see if I can figure out how to share a screen again, because it's been a while. Oh, yeah, it works. Oh, my God. Nothing like when technology actually works. Okay, here we go. So this is all the good stuff highlighted for you because I care and Andrew's an interesting fella. I aspire to live up to your, well, as you can tell, I had a typo here, to your support every day. We are only getting started. So he kind of starts off the book basically saying like he ain't going nowhere, and homeboy is here, he's still making moves. Let's just put it that way. So that's interesting and it's exciting. You know, obviously after the mayoral thing, a lot of us were like, man, what's he gonna do? Like this guy, he's definitely driven, and I saw him last week in person. He was doing this AAPI kind of like, activism thing. And that dude does not look like he's ready to hang up his gloves. So we may not have seen the last of Andrew M.F. Yang. It was the first time I saw him in person, by the way, which was very cool. And what was it? He's taller. He's taller in person than on Zoom. All right, I'll share some pictures of that in the future. Okay, so I now have a better sense of the challenges to our democratic process. So this is kind of a little bit of a preview of him basically saying, I went through this messed up system, and now I know, kind of how broken it is, and because of that, like I want to make some changes. And since I mentioned it, let me see if I can figure out how to show you guys. Oh, I'm in the OTP account. I think it's this one. Let me show you a little picture I have of the Yangster. No. A lot COVID stats. Oh, this is him last week presenting at the Asian American Forward kind of pack thing. Very cool. And this is me and the Andrew in the flesh. And then I don't know if I have the one where he and I were just chatting. No, I don't have that one. But at any rate, that's that. So excerpt, I now have a better sense of the challenges to our democratic process. So spoiler alert, he basically is as excited about trying to rewire the infrastructure for democracy by way of open primaries and ranked choice voting. Thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate that. Interesting. There we go. So yeah, he wants to, and this could be controversial, but I have come to the belief that as much as I want to support all of the great Yang Gang candidates and UBI candidates, and I will continue to do so, I do feel like until you have open primaries and maybe some alternative way of voting, it will be really hard. It will be really hard. And we know this. Like, we see great Yang Gang candidates put out their best effort. And, you know, this two-party system with closed primaries is really tough. So, you know, we are trying to make some inroads in terms of just increasing awareness of candidates through things like ofthepeople.us. So check out ofthepeople.us, and you'll see a nonprofit that I started that's basically designed to increase awareness of first-time candidates. The book is a roadmap, how to make that a vision a reality, not in the abstract, but for real. So when we do part 3 of this live stream in the next, like, say, week or two, we'll go into his detailed plan. But for now, for this stream, we're gonna focus on his reflection and retrospective on, oh, H3 Simp just became a member? Is that true? Thank you, H3 Simp. Welcome. If you are now a member, that would be great. All right. Today, 55% of Americans agree we should pass universal basic income. So I think this is a great, if there's nothing else that this man achieved, the fact that the majority of Americans support basic income, I mean, think about that. What would have happened a year ago? Like, that's just unfathomable that most Americans support basic income now. That's so cool. And I have to say the combination of Andrew Yang and probably the COVID kind of financial assistance and stimulus through direct cash really helped. You know, that's probably the combo. May not have been Andrew alone, but certainly without him, I don't think it would have been nearly as talked about. Yes, Elizabeth is welcoming H3 Simp to the Nerds for Humanity membership. And it pays for all of the software, the green screen, the this kind of control unit I have you can't see. It just helps pay the bills, keep this channel running. Now, here's a long one. We collapse systemic problems into personalized narratives. We try to fix the system by changing the people who run it, only to find that they become part of the system too. Every few years, a new crop of politicians emerges promising to govern on behalf of the people. Then the clock ticks forward. The insurgents become the establishment. Public disillusionment sets in, and we start again. This cycle is a tributary feeding into the country's political rage. It is maddening to keep trying to fix a problem that only seems to get worse. So that's a quote that Andrew quoted of Ezra Klein, but wow, what a profound kind of summary of this cycle of sending new people in. They all say they're going to change. They get into the system, and they get basically assimilated into the machine, and then they become part of the establishment. And I think Andrew, and I have to give credit to Catherine Gale, who wrote the book. I think it's called The Politics Industry or something like that. She was actually a guest on the Nerds for Humanity show, and Elizabeth Norris helped put that together. I think Catherine Gale really emphasized this, and then subsequently was a guest on Yang Speaks. Maybe Nerds for Humanity is a little bit of a farm league for Yang Speaks. But anyway, she subsequently went on Yang Speaks after being on the Nerd Show, and I think made a really compelling argument to Andrew, which is like, this system is working exactly as intended. And until you have open primaries and ranked choice voting, maybe it wasn't Elizabeth Norris who set up the interview with Catherine Gale. Let me make sure I'm giving the right credit here. Thank you, Elizabeth, for correcting me. Let me see who introduced me to Catherine Gale. I'm going to find out right now and do a little fact checking on myself. Catherine Gale. Let me see if I can find out. I probably put it in the credits. Oh, sorry, Elizabeth. I gave you credit. So whoever really did it is going to be pissed at me. So I better find that out now. Catherine Gale Nerds. Oh, come on. Search for Humanity. Here. Who set that up? Hello, nerds. Oh man, I don't call them out in the freaking. Maybe it was. Damn it. All right, I'll find out later. I'm so sorry to whoever set it up. I'm terrible with names. All right, but it was not. It was not Elizabeth Norris. But regardless, Catherine Gale was on the Nerd Show. And because of that, we really got to figure out that this was a problem. That the closed primaries first to the poll voting is kind of part of the issue. So that's Ezra Klein that Yang quotes. Then he says, electoral reform that establishes ranked choice voting and open primaries I consider paramount. Okay? So this is where, here we go. I found the name. It was Laura. It was Laura Lane who set up that interview. So thank you, Laura Lane, and thank you, Elizabeth Norris, for correcting me and making sure that we give credit to Laura Lane. Thank you, Laura Lane. She actually set up a bunch of interviews for Nerds for Humanity podcast and really recommended some great guests. So if you want to know what Yang cares about, I think he doesn't care. Of course, he wants to run again, I assume. And of course, he wants a great third party. But I think if you asked him, if he had his druthers, he would probably want open primaries and ranked choice voting over everything else. So that's crucial. Okay, so next. And I happen to agree with that. I totally agree. Now, here's a controversial thing. H3 Simp, what's he going to run for? You know, this guy, he doesn't do anything small, so I doubt he's going to run for like Congress. I think he would probably go for a bigger role, maybe president. When, I don't know, but we'll talk about the first run he did. Now, here's one thing I will observe, that in California, we actually kind of have an open primary system where the top two Democrats go to the final. And what you notice here, because the Republican Party is pretty small in most parts of California, I will just observe that the Democrat Party kind of candidates, the Democratic Party candidates in in the first primary, usually the incumbent does not actually agree to sitting for any debates or giving any airtime or sort of recognition to the other candidates, and because it's not in their interest to. And somehow the Democratic Party, at least in California, is okay with that. They don't force the candidates to have like preliminary primary debates. And I actually have tried to, and will continue to try, to set that up for, let's say, the California 30th district, and try and get more of the people running to come on the show concurrently, and let's have a real conversation. So open primaries, I think, are important, and maybe the insight there is that not only do they have to be open, but there needs to be mandatory or some incentive for all of the candidates running to get sufficient coverage and evaluation. That if you have an open primary and you have a really strong incumbent, they might still just keep getting reelected. So anyway, that's a little bit about the ranked choice vote and open primaries. I know the plumbing of democracy is not sexy, but fixing things is sexy. So well put by Andrew there. Hold on one second. How many people? Oh, we have 48 concurrents. I don't think we've ever had this many concurrents in a while. As you know, the Nerds for Humanity channel has kind of plateaued at 18,000 subscribers, and we actually lose a little bit each week. So hopefully this content gets shared and liked, and if you're not subscribing, please subscribe so we can keep this machine going. Oh, here's a little fun fact that when the New York Times ran a story about Andrew's presidential campaign, and they had to take pictures, they didn't want to invite the New York Times photographers to their actual office. And this appears to be prior to the time that Andrew got a little bit more professional hairstyling. You can tell this is early Andrew. And this picture is actually taken in an office that they rented, I think, for the day, just for the photo shoot. And Andrew shared a little kind of inside baseball story saying, yeah, like I didn't want to bring them to my mom's basement. Couldn't bring them to his apartment. It was pretty crowded, not super presidential candidate looking. And so they rented out this loft space. And the photographer looked at him and said, yeah, it's good choice for a location. So at any rate, it's a little funny story. All right. Wow, H3 Simp is getting a lot of love for becoming a member of the Nerds channel. And as he should. We haven't had a new Nerds member in a while. We're going to do a shout out to all the Nerds members at the 25, maybe the 30-minute mark. So if you haven't joined, you will get a special cowbell if you join during this stream, like H3 Simp will. But we'll bring out this bad boy, Swiss cowbell. That's the real deal from die Schweiz. Okay, next. Single-payer healthcare was one of Yang's top 3 original planks for his campaign when he started it in 2017. That UBI and human-centered capitalism were the other 2. So it's an interesting, I didn't know that, because when he actually ran and it was, he was being asked about healthcare, he kind of, I don't know, I don't know. Can I use the word backpedal? I think he did. I think he started out supporting single payer, and then he kind of shifted to like Medicare for all who want it, kind of like a Buttigieg style. he doesn't go into why, but I kind of picked this up when I read it. I was like, wait a minute, single payer healthcare was one of your top 3 planks. Like, I don't remember that in 20 early 2020. So that's a little fun fact for those who were, if you were in following that presidential, you remember he was kind of like wishy-washy on healthcare, to be honest. But single payer was actually his original starting point. So if you're ever wondering where Andrew's heart is on healthcare, it's single payer. Okay. One of the original names for UBI instead of freedom dividend was Social Security for All. So this is when I was reading the book, I was like, oh my God, there's all these like little nuggets that, you know, to a mainstream viewer, do they care what the original name of UBI was or freedom dividend? No, but to the Yang Gang, if you really were part of that movement, it's kind of neat. Kind of like the backstory, the director's cut. And so, yeah, one of the original names was, frankly, I kind of prefer it, Social Security for All. But when they polled Democrats and Republicans, Democrats kind of were in favor of most of it. Soldier One says, of course he wanted single payer. It was in his book. It may have been in his book, Soldier One. But certainly in the interviews on the campaign trail, he was not a, kind of full-throated single-payer guy. At least, and even when I interviewed him and I asked him back when he was running, I don't remember him being as hardcore. But you're right, he probably did talk about it in his War on Ordinary People book. So, but yeah, Social Security for All was one of the names, and the Republicans preferred freedom dividend. Personally, I find freedom dividend a little too rah-rah, like kind of almost like, I feel like the Trumpers have taken the word freedom and frankly even the flag and turned it into something that is not positive and is not inclusive and is not evidence-based. And they use words like freedom to talk about, like, not wearing a mask indoors in a school. Or they use the flag and they have like 50 of them behind Trump when he's inciting a riot on the Capitol. So I prefer Social Security for All. Okay, now let's take a moment to thank some of the... Well, maybe I'll do one more slide, and then we'll thank some of the members, all of the members, including our newest member. The robots are... So this is how Yang summarized how he thought people would summarize his stump speech. I kind of joked, I kind of laughed when I read it. The robots are coming. We're doomed. Give everyone money right now. I mean, this is definitely the early Yang, and it for sure was very consistent with his messaging at the time. All right, I think it's time to thank some of our members. So let's go in to do that. And hopefully, yes, you can see here, we're going to start with our highest level, our most supportive members, our senior vice president level. Oh my goodness, who is in the stream right now? Soldier One, thank you for your support, my friend. You keep this channel going. So next we have our VPs, who are also big-time supporters. Kristen Slevin, who has been a member for 21 months, almost supporting this channel for darn near 2 years. Laura Lane, who actually set up that Catherine Gale interview, 17 months as a member. Richard Johnson is a VP, a year member, and Bike, almost a year. And Richard Johnson started out as not a VP and then upgraded himself. So thank you, Richard, for doing that. And then we have the hardcore. We'll start with our longest term hardcore members: Mike Chang, 21 months, Gene Lim, David, DK, Jekalego. I think Jekalego is in the stream. Kirsch, Mr. History, Byram, Hess, Mona Burton, Susan Clifton, Yang Den, Tony Perella, Robert Wu, Dean L, Stat Nerd, Galessa, Jay Perrin. I think Jay Perrin was first in the stream. AA, Jay Bryan, Vivian Lynn, Dana, Flavio Lira, Yoda Fanny, Jason Sherfay, and Parth Patel. So thank you to our hardcore members. And next, I will thank our entry level, and I'm going to go a little faster because there's a lot of them. Lisa, Sugar, Albert, Brandon, Peter, Erez, Your Mammon, Sophia, Mike, Doris, Emerald, Lori, Ben, Roger, Lisa, Christina, Vaughn, Rasta, Jessica, Elizabeth, James, Emma, Hui, Ira, Shoni, Philip, Jameson, Doctor, William, Karen, Monica, Mai, Ardent, Semery, David, Brittany, Sasha, Wana, Warren, Lucky, Kevin, Beverly, H3, Simp, and our newest members, our freshest members. If we reverse total time as member, H3 Simp, 0 days old. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, H3. And then Beverly Weber is 1 month old. So happy 1 month birthday. All right, let's get back to some excerpts. Next one. I would come to realize the process through which one gets press and mainstream coverage is much more institutionalized than I would have ever believed. So this is one of those things where Yang saying, hey, I thought, maybe naively, that, if I have good ideas, I'm getting traction and people are supporting me, my coverage will increase. In reality, even though Yang was raising, there was one quarter where he raised half as much money as Bernie Sanders. And he definitely didn't get half the coverage of Bernie Sanders. So this is him basically saying, hey, if I had to paraphrase this, I started to realize that the system is effed up. And here, he gave a speech at the 2018 Iowa Democratic Wingding. He gave a great speech. I won't play the video now because probably don't have time. And he thought he did really well. And then the next day, this was what the headline was. Avenatti, who gave kind of a weak sauce speech. But again, you can go on YouTube and search for 2018 Iowa Wingding. You watch yourself. But all of the headlines were Michael Avenatti is the anointed one, the one to watch, and nary a mention of the Andrew M.F. Yang. So I think this was kind of his first introduction to basically how some of the news media, and I don't want to be associated with the Trumpers out there who kind of always demonize the media, but the media is made up of humans. The Fox media, the OAN media, but also CNN, Des Moines Register, MSNBC. And those humans have a point of view. And so they were thinking Michael Avenatti would be the ultimate Trump slayer and didn't really want to talk about Andrew Yang. This is him talking about how we're one generation of people shooting up Asians because of racial hostility. Now, he said this before the killings in Georgia. And I think this kind of speaks to a little bit of, I know I love the fact that Yang Gang is very diverse, but for those of you who are Asian Americans, this is a man who kind of gets it and realizes that, as he mentioned at last week's event, AAPI are literally the least represented in Congress in terms of as a percentage of Congress versus percentage of population. So it's kind of like the Asian representation blackout, if you will, that there's just not a lot of Asians in Congress, and it's important to get representation. So if you are AAPI or you know anyone that is, please make sure, number one, everybody's registered to vote, because if you're not registered, then the politicians don't give a crap about you if you're not actively voting. And then ideally, if you want to run for office someday, please consider it, and also list yourself on ofthepeople.us. We'll try and get you some more exposure. I agree. We definitely need, I agree with you, Social One. More Asians need to vote. If you're not voting and you're not registered, like, don't complain. You need to register. You need to get out there. And, we need to get like 1 million registered AAPI voters, and you'd see, new registrations. You'd see a big change in what the politicians do. Okay. And yes, I agree with you, H3 Simp, that this is complicated by the fact that Asian Americans are sometimes conflated with the hostility towards China. And I don't think people yet kind of have come to grips with the fact that there are a lot of Asian Americans who identify and have great love for America as Americans. And I mean, I'm second generation. My kids are third generation. I mean, they'd be lucky. They'd be lucky to be able to point out, Beijing on a map for you. But they definitely know where Washington D.C. is, and more importantly, Seattle and San Francisco. All right. Next, the white supremacist thing was completely confusing to me. So this is where he was. Remember, early days, he was getting a lot of people saying, "Oh, you're supported by white supremacists." Now, I'm going to say something pretty controversial, and but whatever. I'm just going to keep it real. I do think that the Yang Gang has. I remember when I first supported Yang, I was like, "Oh, he's great. He's highly educated, rational, moderate, with some fresh ideas. Like, fantastic. Gotta support this guy." But I do think he has, within the Yang Gang, there were a lot of people who were really, and continue to be, really frustrated and angry at the whole establishment. And a lot of them went back to Trump after Yang suspended. And I'm not gonna say if they were right or wrong. I mean, personally, I don't like Trump, as you guys all know. But I think the Yang Gang is way more complicated than it seems. Like, it's not just a bunch of tech bros. It's not just a bunch of Asians. It's not just a bunch of people who are worried about automation or the working class. There are definitely parts of the Yang Gang that are just way out there. So I've seen a lot of blue hats on Twitter saying things where I'm like, where did you come up with that? So at any rate, it did confuse Andrew, and I think Andrew was confused because I don't think it was necessarily the media just trying to like throw random accusations at him. I think there were white supremacists, people who were sympathetic to white nationalism and white supremacy, that were in the Yang Gang and might still be. I don't think that's the majority of the Yang Gang, but the Yang Gang is definitely more complicated than it might appear. Okay, in April 19, my name was on an MSNBC list of candidates that this MSNBC producer was told not to seek an interview with without any explanation. So this is as close to the smoking gun as you can find, where MSNBC was basically saying, hey, don't interview this guy. Don't give this guy any coverage. And, if you're working for MSNBC and you want to get promoted, you want to get your own show one day, and they send you a list, basically a blacklist of candidates that you're not supposed to cover, like, what are you going to do? So that was kind of interesting. I mean, not shocking. I think we all knew that MSNBC somehow had a thing against him, but it was interesting to see that an actual producer confirmed it. For now, cable news continues to play a central role in shaping and sometimes distorting a presidential candidate's narrative. You're either on the inside protected or on the outside looking in. So I think this is Yang again acknowledging that the kind of gatekeepers or the kind of folks who have the platforms right now, it's cable news, can really influence the momentum of a candidacy. Okay, with Joe now from a money raising point of view, with Joe Rogan, it was tens of thousands of dollars per day that he was able to raise. With the average blink and you'll miss it cable news hit, we raised next to nothing. So this is an interesting thing where he was able to raise money, and this was demonstrated by how he was outraising a lot of senators and congresspeople. Even though he was getting kind of blacked out by the media because of, podcasts and let's call it alternative media. And that did help fuel a lot of his campaign. And so it's kind of a mixed thing. Like, yes, cable news controls or influences the narrative, but you can still raise a lot of money on these kind of podcasts and other forms of media. All right, this is another fun fact, and this will only be interesting to those of you who grew up in the 90s. So he discovered that as the campaign was getting underway, he had to kind of improve his game, his appearance. And apparently hair gel was upgraded to hair wax at some point, which to me was an improvement from my old Studio Line gel from L'Oreal. Who here remembers those? It was like a white tube with yellow and blue and black. Often used in concert with Drakkar Noir. I don't know if any of you grew up in the 90s, but I just thought that I had to include that because as a fellow Gen X person, Asian American Gen X person, I have had many purchases of Studio Line gel from L'Oreal back in the day. All right. Now he goes into the campaign, and they spent $6.6 million on television ads in Iowa and $3.9 million in New Hampshire alone. So $10 million on TV ads in these tiny, tiny areas. And obviously, it did not produce the results we all wanted, but it definitely wasn't for a lack of trying, at least through television ads. Okay, when he looked at some of the polls in Iowa, he realized that his support was more around 5%-ish, and it was skewing young, male, blue-collar, and ominously, did I not spell that right? Ominously. Ominously. There we go. Ominously, non-voters. So that's basically the problem, that you can get a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of people pissed at the system, but you kind of need people that show up. They need to show up on game day. Kind of like how Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf will be showing up today versus the Niners. So, yeah, you can't win with just overemphasis on young male, blue-collar non-voters. They're important like anybody else, but you need people to vote. Okay, so now let me take another quick break to highlight the Of the People Project, which is something that a nonprofit that me and a few other tech folks started. It's kind of like Yelp for political candidates. and you can just go to candidates and you can filter by different policy issues, and then you can approval vote them, and then we rank based on the recent approval votes. So as you can see, Erica Smith, who is running for the U.S. Senate in North Carolina. You can learn more about her, get a link to her, read about her, watch a video about her, and then you can approval vote her, and that will ensure that she moves or stays kind of near the top of the list. But if you like Jay Chen, you can approve him. You can approve, that's how beautiful approval voting is. You don't have to pick one. And that is ofthepeople.us. So go check it out, ofthepeople.us. Back to our originally scheduled. Finney is saying, hey, you should do RCV. Yeah, maybe. It's a little more work to build, technically, but maybe we'll consider that as well. Maybe we can do approval overall, but RCV within a particular district or something like that. All right, next. The big barriers were has the right experience and can beat Donald Trump. So those were the two things in the early confidential Yang polling. Actually, the asterisk doesn't really work there. So let's do this. Let's do italics. I don't even know why I'm doing this, because you guys are watching me edit it, but it's the OCD in me. All right, now we'll do that. There you go. Just a happy little italicized phrase there. Okay, so this was, if you know who I was impersonating just now, let me know in the comments or in the live chat. All right. So yeah, why didn't he win? According to Yang's own polling, they voters wanted people with more experience, and they wanted people who could beat the Trumper. Oh, maple rhubarb, got it. Bob Ross. It's a happy little tree there. Let's put him right over there. And they kind of smack the paintbrush. Happy little italics. Okay, next. When we asked why supporters approved of UBI, it wasn't because of standard of living improvements or robot automation. Instead, it was they liked or trusted me. So they wanted a candidate to pin the idea to. So that was kind of interesting. Even though we spent so much time going over, like, here's the math of UBI, or here's the math of, like, automation. Ultimately, like, our system and democracy is very people-oriented. And I think that's true. Like, not to kind of get us down a rabbit hole here, but you look at how people are reacting to ivermectin versus the new Merck COVID treatment that just had a clinical trial for COVID treatment. And it's really interesting how people who really love ivermectin are very much against the Merck treatment, even though both, or certainly the Merck one, has been proven to be therapeutic and is now going for FDA approval, whereas the ivermectin one has not been FDA approved. And I know what some people on Twitter say is like, oh, it's because the FDA is part of the corporate complex. So, okay. But yeah, this is all about who the message comes from. And Yang presents a very authentic, kind of approachable and smart kind of delivery. And that's why a lot of people went for it. Iowa had trouble reporting results that allowed me and every other candidate to cast results as inconclusive. So this is interesting because, in fairness to Bernie and Buttigieg, because Iowa was such a mess and nobody knew who won for weeks, those poor candidates, I mean, I don't want to feel bad for politicians, but they spent a lot of time leading up to Iowa, and they were kind of robbed of a tied for first victory. Like, who here remembers clearly that it was Sanders and Buttigieg that won Iowa? I mean, decisively. Like, I don't even know what Harris finished at, or maybe she had dropped out by then. Certainly Biden wasn't doing well in Iowa, but now we're kind of veering a little bit off of the Yang campaign, but my goodness, that Iowa thing. If I were a Buttigieg or Bernie supporter, I would be like, F you, Iowa. You've screwed us. Now, here's the thing that I found most interesting about Yang's book, where he talked about the 2020 campaign. And it's something that I struggled with as I was covering his campaign. And the question was, why the heck did you drop out after New Hampshire? Because I think a lot of us were assuming that this guy was going to go the distance. And of course it was going to be improbable. But a lot of things in life are improbable. And apparently, he doesn't name who said this, but someone on Andrew's team said to Yang before the New Hampshire primary votes were cast and counted, while they were still campaigning in New Hampshire, they said, here's the deal. As always, I think there should be a comma here. It is your call. But we think you should start taking steps to preparing to drop out. Oh, Andrew. Why? Why did you do that? And whoever was on Andrew's team, why did you tell him to do that? I still think that was I thought it was the wrong call when it happened. I think it was even more the wrong call now in hindsight. It was completely out of character and very disappointing. Oh my God, somebody gave this stream a dislike. If you're watching this and you haven't given us a like, please do so to offset this negativity. Maybe it was because I was talking smack about the ivermectin stuff. That's probably earned me a dislike. All right. Oh, we got some more likes. Thank you. Thank you, friends. So then Yang says to the campaign team, after they say, hey, you should drop out, they say Yang himself. See, this is where I was like, this doesn't feel like Yang. He said, hey, my entire thing is being the scrappy entrepreneur who works harder than everyone else. Doesn't quitting fly. I think that's improper verb conjugation. Fly in the face of that. Just so you guys know, I had to hand type all these quotes from the book. So that's why it looks like this. I was also tutoring my son for the SSAT as I was making these slides. So I was multitasking. Doesn't quitting fly in the face of that? I don't mind grinding it out. That's the way we started, right? So you could tell, to use a SSAT word, that Mr. Yang was ambivalent. He was ambivalent. He was torn. And then someone on Yang's team said this BS. Your entire thing is being the math guy. The math says that you're not going to win. What does the math guy do? The math guy knew that it was improbable that he was going to win from the beginning. So nothing has changed. What did you think? You think you were going to win freaking New Hampshire and Iowa and then it was going to be like all roses? We all knew this was improbable. We all knew this was hard. But the message needed to be heard. Now, I'm all right. See, I'm getting fired up. Let's just calm. We need to calm ourselves. Yang gang. We need to calm ourselves. Oh my God. Okay. Any rate. So if I were in that room, I would have been like, yeah, the entire thing is being the math guy. And the math says that America needs basic income. And the math says that if I drop out, people are going to talk about it less. So that's why, mofos. Okay. So then when he suspended his campaign in New Hampshire, he makes this speech and he says, I have been convinced that the message of this campaign will not be strengthened by my staying in this race any longer. Ryan, I'm in the middle of a live stream and you're bringing in a dog bed into the office. This is not a good time. Please exit. Exit. Dude, the dog is going to knock over the green screen. Oh my God. Get out. Get out of the... Dude, I have concurrence here, bruh.
I'm sorry.
Get out. Oh my God. Not only am I frustrated that Yang dropped out, my oldest son comes in and puts in a giant dog bed and brings in the dog that was about to, with her tail, knock over the freaking green screen. And then you would see this very messy office. All right, so in summary, let's go to the default screen. Let's see, what have we learned? What have we learned, nerds? Okay, so for this book review so far, this is probably part 1 of 3 book reviews I'm going to do, because I like to go into detail and I like to pull out the interesting quotes. So if you want to get more, don't forget to subscribe stream as well for people who are curious about a little of the inside baseball of the 2020 campaign. But here are my top 3 takeaways so far. Number 1, I actually feel like the single-payer healthcare and Social Security for all, I thought that was pretty cool, like little tidbit of insight. Number 2, I think he clearly is saying, I went through the system was unfair, and we need to kind of change the whole mechanics of how we pick politicians and elect people, which then goes into the open primaries, RCV stuff. So that's a big one. That's a huge number 2. The first one's more like a fun, oh, hey, this is what they originally were going to call it, and he was single payer. The second one is definitely like him, and that's in his introduction, basically pointing, saying, hey, this whole system's messed up. And Catherine Gale, and in her book, it lays it out pretty well. It's working as intended. And the only way to do it is to break open the competition. But that's going to require both the Democratic and Republican Party to be okay with more competition. And we know, you look at history of politics, business, industry, like the folks with the power are rarely eager to give up that power and encourage more competition. I mean, you look at Caesar in The Gladiator, and that was a rare moment of someone wanting to bring back the Republic, right? I don't know why I was thinking about The Gladiator, but that's a great movie. So that's number 2, open primaries and RCV. And then number 3, I think the most interesting thing was that I don't think Yang wanted to suspend the campaign. after New Hampshire. I think his team, and I don't know who they were, and I'm glad that he didn't name them, because if he did, I probably would have shamed you for telling this man to suspend his campaign. Because had he not suspended, could he have done well in South Carolina? Could Dave Chappelle have been helpful as a recent celebrity endorser? Daniel Negreanu in Nevada. Would the COVID initial lockdown have underscored the importance of basic income? Given that all the other candidates had dropped out, he would have been one of the few remaining. Like, at a minimum, I think his platform would have been bigger. He might have had a higher offer from the Biden administration. He also, I'll do this in the second stream, maybe next week, but he also talked about offers from Bloomberg to seek his endorsement in exchange for doing $1 billion UBI pilot. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing to me, was that I don't think he wanted to quit. And I think his handlers and consultants probably were like, hey, you could run for mayor. You could run, you can leave strong and declare victory, and then you'll have a much stronger platform. And I would argue right now he has a weaker platform. I would argue that New York City mayoral loss definitely took a little bit of shine off of Yang's resume. And had he just maintained his presidential campaign for longer, I think he would have gotten more popular. He would have seemed more relevant. And then he could have gone on to consider doing the third party thing or whatever he wants to do next. Of course, hindsight is 2020. But, let me know in the chat what were the biggest kind of surprises or insights for you, either from my summary or for those of you who are already reading the book. What was kind of, what stuck with you, at least for the early part of the book around the presidential? And put those in the chat. I'll try and shout them out, and then we'll wrap up shortly. Soldier One saying, yeah, he really needed to win that. Yeah, and a lot of us were not super enthusiastic about that mayoral run, and I think we were proven right. However, the early polling was for sure supportive, but this is where if you need 50% and 30% are supporting you, the risk is always like you basically are already at your peak. So Torbs is saying, Steve, Padgett's boyfriend predicted running for mayor was a mistake, or maybe it was suspending the campaign. Yeah, I think in that case, Steve was right. Now, Steve and I actually have a difference of opinion on, I think Steve was in favor of Yang running as presidential candidate as a third party during the 2020 cycle. And I remember he and others from the Yang Gang creators were on a nerd show, I think, and we disagreed on that one. But for sure, if Steve was opposed to the NYC mayoral, and I got to give credit to Trumper for Yang. I think Trumper for Yang was very much against the NYC mayoral as well. Some folks were very much in favor of this dark horse duo idea, which I thought was, at the time, really illogical, given the time remaining and the absence of any detailed planning. But I know a lot of Yang Gang were big fans of the dark horse duo idea. But so, yeah. Jay is saying, what up with Andrew, Scott, Padgett, Yang Gang? Yeah, I think Padgett is focusing on other things. I don't think she wants to be a full-time political streamer. Don't blame her. I think a lot of the Yang Gang creators have kind of, had to move on. And frankly, there isn't that much demand for Yang Gang content. My channel, get a few hundred views per video, if on a good day or after replay. Sometimes they're just like 100, 200, and you got to really love politics and policy and Yang stuff to keep producing content. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm sticking around because I enjoy it. Shay is saying NYC mayor is such a limiting role. Career politics. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't have ran for mayor. I mean, basically, the mayor thing was you run on UBI when the top issue is crime and safety. It's not going to do it. Let's see. Now Torbs is saying, yeah, now he's going to have to live off the mayoral thing. I agree. Mike is saying the best thing about the third party is that he can be himself again. Jewel is saying I'm stuck. Yes, Jewel, of course, the documentarian. Soldier 1 is saying that Paget thinks politics brings out her worst. It does do that to a lot of us, and so yeah, I don't blame her, and I respect the fact that she's got other stuff going on. Yang needs to watch more Yang Speaks. It's interesting. I listened to the most recent. I don't know if it's the most recent, but a previous one, Yang Speaks. There was a lot of criticism by Zach and Carly around the elite universities, and I think their argument was, people go to these universities being super liberal, but I'm going to say something controversial, so I'm probably going to get some more dislikes on this one. It could be that people who are very into new ideas and constructive policy and improving the conditions of those with less power tend to be more progressive or liberal, and they also tend to be more into reading and taking tests and doing well in school, and that's why they end up at these kind of elite institutions. I don't think it's that those institutions necessarily create liberals. I think liberals tend to be very into consuming information and data-driven, fact-based, good at math, that kind of thing. And so I think there's a correlation there. But I know a lot of people are going to be pissed for me saying that. But there you go. Soldier 1 is saying NYC mayor is one. Yes, it is one of the most powerful people if you can get there. Oh, Nell Nieves is here. Hello, Nell. I think that's Nell Nieves. It's N Nieves, unless there's another one. Did you listen to the NPR Hangouts? I don't think I did. But I will check it out. I definitely listen to NPR a lot. Gayla is saying, I only watch when Yang is speaking and interviewing someone. Yeah, well, fair enough. Hopefully he'll be back soon. So, with that, I will, as the defender, I definitely did not appreciate Carly. I've never met Carly, and she seems like a super smart, and I know she's into crypto and everything. Crypto Carly. I didn't really like it when she was hating on Harvard. I just felt like that was like, whoa, go easy on it, man. That's don't be hating on Harvard. But there you go. So those are 3 takeaways for the next show, which I'll probably do in a week or so. We're going to focus on basically the second third of the book, and some of the topics will be the era of institutional failure, systems failure, centers for passing the buck in human economy, how we know what we know, our data, whose data, loyalty cuts both ways, watching the watchmen, why not much passes, the wave that wasn't, and constructive institutionalism. So that's going to be a good 100 pages of reading for your favorite nerds for humanity, assuming I'm your favorite nerd for humanity. And I'm going to go through it like I did the first third. And Soldier 1, to be honest, MIT alumni hate on Harvard all the time. Well, I don't want to say anything derogatory towards MIT, but I believe the Harvard landscaping budget might be bigger than MIT's faculty salaries. And so, but obviously MIT's amazing. All right, so we're going to go through, the next stream, we'll go through 100 pages of basically Yang deconstructing the problem. And I will underline all the things I find interesting, and then I'll create the slides, and then we'll come back again. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds. Share, like, check out ofthepeople.us, approval vote whoever you like, and then that'll help us give more exposure to folks like we already have been doing. And one last time, we got Erica Smith, Jay Chen, and Donna Imam are the top 3 trending candidates on OTP. They are the ones that have gotten the most recent approval votes. And it's free. If you don't see your favorite candidate here, it's free for any candidate to list themselves. And, we actually sometimes add candidates too. We have interns that create those profiles. So if you want to nominate a candidate, just let me know on Twitter. I'll add them. I will say there are a couple candidates who have asked us not to list them, and we need to honor that. But generally, it's free exposure for any candidate that wants to get their name out there. But you are then listed in rank order based on approval voting. So, that's part of the implication. All right. Oh, Soldier 1 knows the Hamilton tune. Very well done. You guys are, I think we're all the same generation and interests. Many of us know Bob Ross and watched Hamilton. So there you go. Yang, goodbye, nerds. And